Shalom Aleichem. Today is Hey Nissan. Tonight, Vov Nissan is my shver, Reb Chaim Serebryanski's Yartzeit. I'd like to share a few stories I heard from him, ideas, life's lessons, and give you also a little introduction of his background so you understand who this person was. My shver was born in Kharkov in 1929. He grew up in the same home that his Baba Rachel Leah Shagalovitz Hayadua lived in since 1905. So the family lived in this house in Kharkov from 1905 to 1939 when the war broke out. The environment there was a Chassidish environment. I heard from Dus Yerivkin Olav Sholem, who just passed away yesterday, so L'Tayvis Nishmasa, how although everyone lived together in one room, it was such a clean and beautiful, warm house. Reb Mendel Futterfass, who also lived for a while in Kharkov, told me that when my shver was a young boy, he was the one who taught him the Aleph Beis. He said to me, Ich hab gelegt auf mein Schoß und gelernt mit ihm the Aleph Beis. I placed him on my lap and taught him the Aleph Beis. Reb Mendel Futterfass told me, Reb Mendel Futterfass, by the way, was my shver's uncle, because my shver's mother, Brocha Serebryanski, and Reb Mendel were brothers and sisters. Anyway, so Reb Mendel's son, he told me that out of all the nephews, there was Ben Zion Shem Tov, and his own children, and the Serebryanskis, Chaim, he said, my shver was the most beloved from all of them. I'm just telling you what he told me. This is what Betel Futterfass told me. My shver had a Warmkeit and Gutskeit, a natural goodness to him. He liked to do a Yid a favor. And he lived with that even as a young boy and as a teenager. In Samarkand, in the 40s, when they all went to Samarkand, he was part of the yeshiva where Reb Nissan Nemenov was the mashpia, and Reb Avraham Plotkin, I believe, was a Maggid Shir, or the Rosh Hashiva, and he spoke very highly of Avraham Plotkin's shiurim, his lectures. Reb Sholem Ber Drizen, who was amongst that class, spoke about my shver the Shabbos after he passed away, which normally he speaks about his father, Reb Avraham Mayor, once a year. He speaks about him from the Bima. And this time he told the Olam, he told everyone he's speaking about his childhood friend, Chaim Serebryanski. And he said that although they had in their class stars, Heshke Dubrovsky, David Raskin, Minkowitz, and others, he says no one compared to Chaim's Emeskite. And he said Chaim is a brilliant. Chaim is a diamond. Yes, maybe in Haskalah and in Avodah, in different aspects, there were others that excelled more than him. And by the way, my shver learned well, not just Chassidus, but he learned Nigla till his last days. He would learn every day a shir in Crown Heights with he had a Chavrus 11, and they learned Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, the good old-fashioned way, They weren't learning Daf HaYomin. They weren't just covering ground. They were Poshut learning for the sake of learning the Eibishter's Torah, Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos. He would listen to shiurim from Rabbi Kalmanson on various Masechtas, Kalmanson in New Haven. He would get the tapes. This was before the CDs here in Borough Park by Rabbi Applebaum. He had the tapes, and my shver would get them and ask us to pick it up for him. So this was a person who was learning. The Rebbe once told my shver that he should, daven barichas. This is already in America. And he was Mekayim that by coming to the early minyan and getting all the chiyuvim, and then he would daven at his own pace. Nevertheless, Shalom Bedrizin said, this is not what stands out in his mind about Chaim Serebryanski. What stands out is his gutzkeit and emeskeit. I'll tell you a story that my shver himself told me. The yeshiva, the Lubavitch Yeshiva 770, Toim Prit Mimim, needed money. So they asked Shalom Bedrizin for money. And he said he'll give the money, but he doesn't want certain people to benefit from his money because they were attacking the Mashiachistan. And not that Shalom Bedrizin, Reb Shalom Bedrizin is the biggest Mashiachist, but he's always for the underdog. So he said to them, I'm going to ask my friend Chaim Serebryanski what to do. And he asked my shver, and my shver said, Avada sollst du geben de Geld, und Avada sollst du geben jeder einer von die, was du willst nicht geben, weil sie halten anders von dir. Wir haben gegessen in ein Schüssel. Sure, you should give the money, and sure, you should pay for those that oppose your principles. We all ate from one bowl. We all came from the same place. That was my shver. Politics aside, when it comes to helping a Yid, there's no difference. I think this is something that we must really live with, especially today. Anyway, during the 50s and 60s, my shver in 1951 or so wanted to come to America and, to be together with his chaverim, Be'el Yunik, Yosel Reitzes, Heshke Dubravsky, in those years, 51, 52, 53, those early years. And the Rebbe said, no, he's to remain in Melbourne and work in the fields. The Rebbe said, he listens. He finally came in 1958, and in 1959 he married my Schwiegersohn, sie seien gesund. And the Rebbe personally sent them back to Melbourne. I think the Rebbe paid for their tickets, or half of their tickets, to go back. And Reb Zalman Serebryanski, his father, says in an interview that all of his activities on behalf of Lubavitch, which, by the way, he was the only one from all the 5 Chassidim that were sent by the Frierdiker Rebbe to be from the beginning in Chinuch until the end. He never had, he didn't do business, Reb Zalman. He was all Kuli Klei Kodesh. He says that Chaim hat mir stark geholfen in Alts. Chaim, his son, was hand in hand in every activity that he was involved with, be it the Beis Sifke, be it the yeshiva, be it the shul, on and on and on. The lawyer Hirsch Cooper told me that he was the lawyer and Mr. Reitman was the accountant, and Chaim was a balabos, and they three were in charge of supervising money that came into the yeshiva from wills and different things. And Hirsch told me that people so much trusted my shver that they gave him large amounts of money, and he could have easily not told anyone. He could have easily taken a commission. Who would know the difference? But Hirsch said, I know for sure that he gave every penny to the yeshiva. Hirsch also told me that it was Chaim who was the Ruach HaChsidishkeit of Melbourne during the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. In other words, there were other chassidim, but more balabatish, and then daf gein aheim, you have to go home, and who's interested? Shabbos mevorchim, my shver said, we're making a farbrengen. If not in shul, in my house. And a farbrengen meant saying l'chaim. He was able to say l'gakut l'chaim, and he would say l'chaim, and then he would start talking via mashpia talks, not bubble mices and philosophies, the poil mamish and was daf meton, as Yidden, as Chassidim, as Doira Shvi. Label Oldtime told me that in 1970 or 71, the Rebbe in the summer wanted all communities should learn, because there was something going on there at Yisroel, and they couldn't get a hold of Rabbi Yitzchak Groner, so who did Reb Chadakov call? Reb Chaim Serebryanski. And so Chaim asked Label and a few other of the shluchim to make calls all over Australia that they should organize the people to learn particular things. Rabban Yartzeit said that until he came to Melbourne and he saw Chaim Serebryanski in action, he never understood what the Frierdiker Rebbe writes in Likutei Diburim in his talks about Chassidische Balabos. But when he saw Chaim Serebryanski, jetzt hat verstanden. Now he understood what a Chassidische Balabos is. This means that my shver, on one hand, was, a real chassid, a Chassidische Beindel, a warm chassid, and at the same time, he was a businessman, a big businessman, a successful businessman. And how did he combine the two? This is because he was humble and selfless. He really was selfless. He did everything for the cause. I know myself as his oldest son-in-law and marrying in Melbourne and being around the house. I saw this in various ways. The other person came before himself for sure, and even his family. And he would say to his family, we Baruch Hashem have our family, and we learned, and we davened, and we were raised in a proper way. Many other people don't. You need to think about them first. In 1990, my shver came to New York, and he settled with his wife and his daughters in New York, and he lived his last 25 years in New York. And in a way, these were the best years of his life. He lived with the Rebbe and Chassidim. And who was the one who started the Likutei Torah and Torah Ohr Shir in 770 was Chaim Serebryanski. Could you imagine? It's 770, and from 1950 to 1990, no one gives a shir before davening in Likutei Torah in 770. Why did he do it? Because that's the way it was in Rusland. That's the way Lubavitch Chassidim, it's bread and butter. That Shabbos morning, you learn Likutei Torah. In addition, you want to learn the Rebbe's Maimorim and other things, but Likutei Torah you have to learn. And when he saw there's no shir, he didn't ask anybody. He made the copies himself. He kept the copies. He hid the copies. They shouldn't get lost in 770. He distributed the copies, and he got the people together, and those that wanted sat and learned. Until today, that shir is ongoing, Baruch Hashem, all b'schus Chaim, Reb Chaim Serebryanski. I'm just bringing out to you that he didn't wait for instructions. I heard from him so many times, meveis was medaf ton. We know what we need to do. He also taught me how to give tzedakah, how to give maimed. He said, maimed daf men geben. Maimed is the money we give to support the Rebbe's house. Maimed daf men geben mit cash. Leib mezeicha, you have to give cash. And if we merit, nehmt es the Rebbe. And he gave a lot of maimed. He told me that Reb Mendel Futterfass taught him this, and Reb Mendel taught him Bechlal, that everything a person owns belongs to Teim Pritmimim. All the money that the person raises or makes is Teim Pritmimim. It belongs to the yeshiva. And whatever you need for your family, you take a little bit for your family. So he grew up with that mindset. I conclude that in his brief tzavo, he said that he doesn't want any hespedim and droshes at his shloshim, and if anyone wants to do anything for his shloshim, they should learn the maimer in the Yiddish Maimorim Kol Sheruch HaBriyas Neichem Mimenu, Ruch HaMokim Neichem Mimenu. And what's the thrust of that maimer? It's about menschlichkeit, humanity, decency, loving each other, caring for each other. They say that he knew the entire Sefer Maimorim Yiddish by heart. I don't know if word for word. I heard him chazering other Maimorim from there at various occasions. And Bechlal, at every simcha, when he had an opportunity and they allowed him, he would chazer a maimer, either a whole maimer, part of a maimer, a vort from a maimer. He was makban in that, and the reason is because that's the real minik Chabad should be, to say a maimer chassidus at a bris, at a bar mitzvah, at a wedding, at all of these special occasions, at a sheva brachas. So the maimer that he chose to learn in honor of his shleishim, if one wanted to do that, was this maimer. So b'schusay let the neshama of Reb Chaim ben Reb Yehoshua Shneir Zalman Serebryanski have an aliyah and knock on the Eibishter's door, and all the good schusim that he did throughout his lifetime to bring Mashiach and to really bring an end immediately to this terrible magefa that we're suffering from worldwide. And soon we will see with our own eyes the Rebbe and all the Rabbeim and all the Tzaddikim and all the Yidden, and we'll celebrate Pesach in Yerushalayim, in HaKodesh. Amen v'amen now.